Witam bardzo serdecznie na kolejnej kwarantannie. To już 26. spotkanie nasze, gdzie będziemy rozmawiać standardowo o jakości. Dzisiejszymi gośćmi będą nasi koledzy z Backbase, Kuba i Elias. Na początek Kuba opowie na pewno coś o firmie, a potem oddamy głos Eliasowi, który troszeczkę bardziej opowie o już zagadnieniach, które są dla nas ciekawe. Okay, na razie możemy przełączyć się już na angielski. Kuba, could you tell something more about Backbase?
Cześć, hello. My name is Jakub. I'm from the recruitment team, and I'm helping all of our wonderful colleagues to grow Backbase in Poland. And what is Backbase? Backbase, just a few words. It's the best thing that can fintech become. We are creating innovative software, web and mobile applications for banks and financial institutions without being a bank. So we are cutting off all of the stiff restrictions, all of the technology debt, all of this monolithic way of working. We are connecting the best practices both from Spotify Agile Framework and Scale Agile Frameworks to our way of working. And basically what we are doing is we are creating banking apps, not how banks imagine it they're supposed to be, but how we end users want them to have. So this is quite important for us. And since we are a product company, we are a technology company, we are very direct into diving into the fresh newest technologies, really agile environment and quick delivery. So there's no place for boardroom with Backbase, that's for sure. And we're divided between two great departments. The first one, and the member of one of this R&D is Elias, who works just for developing the newest features, newest applications, newest solutions for our clients. And the second one, customer success, is what we can call product implementation. Teams are dedicated to work with clients to implement them all over the world. So this is how it gets. And we are in Krakow. We are in Poland from more than a year now. There's more than 100 people on board, and we are still growing. So if you are looking for something new, something that you would like to join, whether to the office or working remotely, we are more than open. There's plenty of space for good quality assurance engineers with us. So yeah, go ahead. And I think that's, if you have any further questions regarding the recruitment process, regarding Backbases, or everything that comes to your mind that we can help you with, go ahead, ask me or Elias. I will be happy to help. And I think that's it. Elias, that's the floor is yours, I think.
Elias, you're on mute.
I do this all the time during the meetings. I mute myself and I start talking. Yeah, just it's normal.
Okay, so stage is yours, and we go.
Thank you a lot. Hi guys, I'm Elias. Actually, thank you a lot to inviting me again. I gave a presentation some months ago regarding the basic parts of the API testing. And today I will talk about how to create, how to extend this basic part in modular project for microservices. But before that, just on top of we have Backbase is hiring. So if you guys would like to know a little bit more about our process, our culture, everything, you are free to add me on the LinkedIn, ask some questions. So I'm I will be happy to help you guys to join Backbase. We have a lot of colleagues, and I will say that all the QA engineers that we are working for, the guys are really good, and I know that you guys are really good, and you guys study a lot. You guys do a lot of things, so it's awesome And yeah, I hope I can, one of you, if you are not working at Backbase, if you like to join, can join Backbase. So let me start with basic things. I will share my screen. And I believe the questions, just one thing we need to know about the questions, probably you guys will, in the end or in the middle, you guys can send me the questions, right? If you guys have any questions during the presentation, ask, and probably the guys will send to me here and I can reply it, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show some slides because of course it's a presentation, we are showing slides to you, but not because it's boring, because I need to give you some context about this, let's say, the problem and how we can solve it. And after that, I will show the implementation. I not write a lot of code, but I will show the structure, how it was structured and how you guys can structure. And of course, we can do in different ways. I will comment this as well. Okay. So one thing, again, I'm Elias. I'm a principal engineer in Backbase. If you guys want to have in advance this presentation and all the examples, you guys can grab your smartphone, play some photo, scan this QR code, and you're going to pay me 10 euros. No, I'm kidding. You're going to have access to this presentation and all the presentations I presented in some conference. In the end, of course, you see the same QR code and you will be able to download it later on. And all the time we are trying to solve problems. So what problem do we need to solve with this splitting the test projects in different projects? Normally, implicitly, what we want to increase confidence in delivery, right? Because we need to make sure not only we QA engineers, quality engineers, but the whole team needs to increase the confidence in the delivery, what we are delivering to the customers. We need to cover the key business scenarios, and Backbase works for fintechs, for huge banks, small banks. So we need to deliver like 0 bugs policy. This is our policy. It's hard, it's possible. Sometimes we fail, we learn, but at least the key business scenarios should be covered without any issue. Otherwise, our customers will have financial loss, and maybe regarding the contract, it will be transferred to Backbase, so it's not that good. So we need to make sure as a team we can cover all the scenarios. And we need to have the certainty that all the tests can find a possible failure and we can do some modifications, okay? So the test is, you guys have heard this before, it's a safety net. It's not supposed to run all the time without any problems, but if there's a problem, it's not, oh my God, there's a problem, Jesus, no, it's good because we found this problem before a customer. So we need to just take a different approach. Instead of blame someone or blame the process or blame anything, we need to understand why that failure happened and try to solve that problem. And a short introduction regarding this general topic. Normally in modern applications, let's say, we have individual APIs or microservices with small features working in isolation. And it's implicitly done, the unit test there, because we need to make sure, of course, the backender developers are like writing all those code, and they need to test that to make sure, okay, it's working fine, but only in that small portion of what they are doing. It's not the whole microservice scenario, but the unit test must be done. And not by quality engineers, of course, by backend engineers, because they know about that code. And we need anyone, the team, sometimes the quality engineer, sometimes the backend engineer, we must create and cover, add more scenarios on top of that, creating functional and end-to-end tests, right? And why? Because first, we need to create functional tests to make sure like all the happy paths and edge cases, exception paths will works as expected. And also the end-to-end tests. Most of the time, some guys are not like are confused because can I do end-to-end tests in an API? Of course I can do. If the application was based on if it's based on microservices, I can mimic all the front-end scenarios, all the flow in the back-end part, in the API part, because the front-end is consuming those APIs. So this end-to-end is also huge, yet really important. And of course, we do this because as a microservice is a small feature, this small feature sometimes depends on other feature, that depends on other feature, and so on. And my API can depend in several features and consume several, being consumed by several features. So I need to make sure I can do these two ways of testing. To my microservice itself, or my microservices consuming other APIs and doing my stuff, okay? And how we can create test projects for that? We are talking about APIs, so we need to test these APIs. I actually proposed 3 different models. This model 1 is the, let's say, most used ones, has some advantage, has some disadvantage. So what it consists is, I have different APIs, and for different APIs, I will have a test project. Let's say we are working on some website that sells flight tickets, that is selling flight tickets. So we know that maybe the search part of this application is an API. After that, the selection of the flight will be another API. And after that, the payment part will be another API. And in the end, the reservation code that I can see my ticket, and after that checking, it's another API. So let's say we have 4 different APIs. I can, in this model 1, have those 4 different APIs and have only one test project to test everything, functionally speaking and end-to-end speaking. Like I can try to do functional tests in the search part, like try to search for valid flight tickets, or try to put the date in the past that is not allowed for this case, and do all those edge cases we know. And of course, I can try to do the whole flow, searching, selecting the flight, paying the flight, and seeing the result. That is my code, or my codes to be able to do my, Jesus Christ, I'm not flying for a while, so when checking, yeah. What is the pros and cons? The pros, we have only one project to centralize all the code we have, which is good in some sense, and we are really fast in creating tests and solving problems regarding tests because we have only one project. And the cons, with constant change, let's say it's sometimes not only one person that will change this project. Sometimes it's a lot of different quality engineers. So a lot of people can place change there, and will add some side effects if it's not properly tested by the own QA engineers there. We have also the model 2 that consists and one API project, test project per API that I have in the backend. Let's say if I have the search part on my flight application, I will have the same test project for that API. If I have the payment part to process for my flight tickets, I will have a test project for that payment API. If I have any other API regarding it, I will create another test project for that. Instead of having one test project, I will split it up in different test projects, one per API. What is the pros? We can organize it better the projects because we are matching the API to the test project. So we have a decentralization for the test projects within the API, and we can work in isolation with that API, which is good because I know everything about the API, and it's one of the main goals of microservices, self-contained features. So I'm also creating self-contained test project that tests that feature or that functionality. And the possible cons is the possible code duplications, because in this API, in these test projects, I might have some common methods, like I need to log in or get the access token. So I will duplicate this access token, getting code from all the different tests. So it's not that good, because if I need to change something, and changing any and different projects like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay. And the part 3, the model 3, is to try to solve that model 2 problems. We are going to create, of course, one test project, and we are going to create also a client project for that. What does this mean? The client project will put all the necessary logic to do anything regarding the test. Exceptions returns, transport objects, request calls, configurations, customizations, endpoints, everything we want. And the test project, we are going to consume all the client projects. And why we have this differentiation between the client and test? This client terminology is because normally working with the APIs, we have a spec, an open API spec to generate or to be based on, because it's our documentation. So on this client project, we are creating this client to be able to hit the proper endpoints with the proper objects and in the proper parameters. And also we can add that, some different code. Instead of calling all the time, like you need to do 3 different steps to achieve one result, I can create these methods to do 3 different steps, self-contained. And so instead of doing 3 different steps, I have a method that will do this. So it's like, will be better, but you can see we are creating more and more test projects. And what is the pros and cons? The pros, we can plan new features, breaking chains, anything in advance. We can, through these client projects, we can make it easier, the consumption for the other teams. Most of the time in an organization that's not a startup, it's not small, we have different teams being responsible for different microservices. In this way, let's say one team will be responsible for the search feature of this booking application for flight tickets, and another team is taking care of the payments. And if I need to do end-to-end test, I need to consume two different features with 2 different projects with 2 different clients. So if I have the client, I can only consume that client, and I know that the guys will have already all the methods implemented, so I can only consume the methods to, okay, do a payment with like all the data, all the necessary data correct, or do a payment with and expect to be the credit card denied, and etc. So it will help us on this flow. And the cons, it's the time will increase comparing to the previous models, because we need to split up in all different test projects and all different client projects and everything in order to make sure it can have like not a stable, but a different approach, an approach that can grow, that can scale as the microservices scale, or the complexity scale, or the team scale. That first part, let's go back to that slide. This will not scale because you have only one test project. Imagine you have now 10 teams and like 13 quality engineers working on only one project. It will be hell. It will be really difficult. On this one, it's getting better, but you have a lot of code duplication and everything to manage in different teams. This is more complex to create, but now we are creating more structure to be able to grow in complexity. And implementation examples. One other thing we do, we have code applications, right? And we have some libraries to manage as well. What we do normally in the test separation, now adding on top of that more 2 projects. Yes, I love to create some different projects. And why I'm creating different projects? Let's say for the test projects, we are going to use the same libraries, right? Let's say rest assured to do all the API tests, maybe JUnit or TestNG in Java to use as support to create tests. Any other library you guys would like to use, Allure, any other library, will be duplicated, right? Instead of creating this duplication in all the libraries, one good thing is to maintain the same libraries for all the test projects. So everyone knows what can happen. If there's any issue, it's not regarding, that thing adopted the new version of this library. And that thing is having a specific issue with that. We can have a controlled environment, so everyone is using the same thing. So I'm calling this parent project. Why parent? Because this parent will have all the libraries necessary to use in the tests. And on this commons project, it's everything that is common between the client and tests, which means most of the time, not the libraries, but code. We need to access and get access the application and get the authentication token, right? And we have certain endpoints. We need to revalidate after like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And this code is shared between all the tests. And in order to have a centralized point, so everyone can use the same code, we can create like a different project with those different code. And so everyone can consume like the login process with the access token or any other common things like access the database, logs, and any other thing. Because of that, we are creating 2 more projects. Yeah, now we can see we have 1 test project, 1 client project per API, and now more 2 projects on top of that. We are not going to duplicate those common and parents, of course, but we have more to create in this at the beginning. Just to make sure the overview, the client project will contain all the calls we need to do them on the microservice part. And doesn't matter if they are successful calls or simulating some exceptions, but this client project will not contain any test, any assertion, only the calls, because we are consuming the spec. And the spec, let's say we can create the clients to do all the calls, and we'll do only this, only the calls, whatever is successful or simulating an exception. On the test project, we are going to create the test itself, consuming those methods to do the calls, like post the dates, selecting a flight ticket that maybe it might be a post, or getting something. And this test part will consume this client project, and we are going to create all the tests for that microservices. And a good thing, we can create functional and end-to-end tests because we can, let's say, consume more than 1 client. I will show you how to do this later. We have the commons project that will be the code and libraries commons to the client, URL definitions, authentication, shared codes like database access, anything, logs, special access to some different endpoints will be placed on these commons. Oops. And the parent will have the code, most of the time libraries, common to the test, like data, object data mass is weird, but it's a really Brazilian translation, sorry guys. All the data, all the necessary data that is shared, any support functions, any code that is common among all the tests, okay? And let me take a look if there's any question. There's a lot of I can see the comments. Okay. Before I go through, I will read some questions here and I will answer some questions. Just make sure we can have. I can. Okay, there's one. Okay, Jaku. This is magic, guys. How it's showing here to me. Okay. Are those models deployed independently or they are deployed as the whole solution? You can choose. I don't know who asked that, but you can choose. I would recommend have separate projects with different versions. I will show this later, but you can create like one project with a lot of submodules on that and using that. This is really possible with Java, but if you're trying to use Node, Python, or any other programming language or framework, you need to manage in different versions. And I prefer managing different versions instead of having a multi-module project and handle everything in the same project. Cool. The second one, in Model 2, how do you maintain common areas of test projects so that there are no code duplications? Excellent questions. So in the Model 2, actually, the answer is the Model 3, right? Because in the Model 3, you can have this, in this part, we can have this common project and this test, in this test parents to handle everything. But I understood your question because Model 2 seems, of course, better than the Model 1, but there's this data problem and libraries problem that we need to handle. So I'm implicitly showing you guys that Model 1 is not that good. Model 2 it's okay, but Model 3 is the best one. Cool. Is this client kind of framework reusable among the test project? Yes. We are going to have all those calls, like here, all those calls for the microservice here. And like at Backbase, we separated those calls in two different ways. We have the specific call to the API that does normal method like a get, post, put, delete, patch, etc. This is the client part. And we have a service part inside this client, but just a class, where we can have one method doing a lot of different steps. Let's say if I need to, I don't know the example, but I need to do one thing that is three calls to the API to have a result. Instead of calling three different APIs with 3 lines, I can create a method, a service method, or a support method that will, I will do that. And those 3 different actions will be inside that method. So we call it in Backbase like service classes. And we are going to have the client classes that will do the specific calls. And Anatoly, and now I can see some questions. Anatoly. What do you think about monorepos used in, for example, Google, where thousands of new works the same repository? We are on one of my teams. We are trying to do this with only with the backend services. It's not that bad, but we are learning this process where we are trying to actually it's an experimental process. We are trying to see all the possible problems. And maybe in the future, we are planning to do this. All the tests will be there as well. So we have a mono repo, but not for the entire company, only for a huge feature we have. And we're going to place everything there. What we are not struggling, but what we are trying to understand, how we can manage different versions and different things. Because like, let's say, every day we have like a lot of different pull requests. And this will be like the hard part to manage. And so some companies are using monorepos, but yeah, I'm just new with that, and I'm trying to learn this process as well. I believe depends on the context. Of course, this is a normal answer, but really depends on your context. I have heard some presentations that monorepo really helped some companies and really mess up with a lot of different things in other companies because of this huge code base they have. Thanks for your question, Anatoly. And there's another question to Anatoly. Commons. Projects tend to become good projects containing everything you can imagine. It requires to have the ownership of such kind of projects with well-implemented process. Yes, you're right, Anatoly. And let's say I can tell the current approach at Backbase. Normally, we have different, of course, seniority levels. The quality engineers as junior, medium, and seniors. And we have the principal engineers and principal quality engineers, back-end engineers. Most of the time, the principals are responsible for that huge and shared components or project, etc. But everyone, like any engineer, can go there and add new features and fix new features. But most of the time, we have this responsibility as principals. It's okay. As principals as well, we need to maintain this whole structure of the frameworks of projects. So we must have an ownership of that. It's shared, but we must name it people or teams to have this responsibility. So yes, we need to follow this process. We need to have this process. And it's easy to think about client projects as regular libraries you import as dependencies from NVN, Maven Center, etc. Yes, the client project is exactly this. I will show to you later, but the client project we can like only import as an npm dependence or Maven dependence or any dependence. So if I need to on my, let's say my microservice is self-contained, of course, and my test project for this is self-contained. But let's say I need to also interact with the audit part. Everything that I do on my API should be audited. I need to consume an external API. And to be sure I can test it, I do something in my API and I can see that it's being audited. I need to, let's say, import this client library, use the methods they have to help me to write some tests to make sure all the things I'm doing are being audited. That's an excellent question. And why this client, with taking into consideration parent project cannot be with the test project? Client with, okay, let's go back here. We normally do this separation with the client project. Actually, it's an excellent question because let's say if I have a microservice that no one will consume, sometimes it happens. I don't need to separate split in the client and test project. I can have only a test project or a project here, and which is fine. But if I have a microservice that can be consumed by other microservices, this split is necessary. Not necessary, but it will be good to have this growing process in complexity. And these parent projects cannot be with the test project. Can be, if I understood the question, I can queue this parent project and have all the libraries in the test. But let's say I'm using some versions for some libraries and you updated that libraries. Oh, they just launched a new version of the library. Let's adopt that. And after a while, you can see there's a lot of issues, a lot of problems of false positive tests because you adopted a new library and this new library is flaky or has changed something that you need to refactor the whole infrastructure, the whole code. So in order to make this like in a planning part, we are creating this parent project. Let's say if I adopting a new library that will create some breaking chains, renaming some methods or deprecating some methods, removing some methods, I will know in advance that I will break all the tests and I can plan it accordingly and say, okay, teams, we are going to adopt in 1 month this new version of this library that will have this, and that benefit. But in order to have those benefits, we need to refactor your code and we need to do this, and that. And maybe it's like 3-4 days works. So we need to plan accordingly instead of having any surprise during our test process or test execution. Cool. If I not answered your question properly, please send another question. I agree with Anatoly. Commons will be a good project which will surface as a product derived from particular teams requirements. So it will require a team to maintain. Yeah, this for sure. As I said, yeah, we have like this pool of principles maintaining it, but anyone is welcome. Sometimes it happens. All the QA engineers do something there, but we must have responsibility on both actually, on commons and on parents, because as I explained before, let's say we have a new rest assured library version was delivered, and there's some breaking change there. I need to know in advance, I need to plan accordingly, I need to do some tests before we can adopt anything. Why we do this? This might seem not okay, guys, but we can adopt its failure, I can revert back. But if you guys already work it for financial companies, we need to plan everything, any breaking change. We need to be careful in anything we are doing because it impacts on financial loss. So it's the same like I'm having this machine that will do something for the patient, but if it's not properly tested, it kills the patient. It's the same thing. If there's any update in that machine, I need to test, stress that, know everything, and after that say, okay, it's safe, everyone can use that. Will be the same for the commons and parent projects. Cool. Thank you guys for all of your questions, and I will continue here, and after some minutes, I will jump back to the questions. Cool, and please continue asking questions. I love that. Sometimes I'm learning from the questions as well. Okay, so what is our example? If you guys were in the last session I gave here, the Crack QA, is the same application. It's a low-end simulation. This is the front-end part, but we have only the back-end application, of course. But let's imagine the user interface will be this one. In Brazil, we have something called CPF, that is your social security number. And if I would like to get a loan, I can fill my loan. And actually, it's really happens in Brazil. There's no GPRD there. There is, but it's not being respected. The website can tell you, okay, I will not give you a loan because you have some restrictions. We didn't pay your mortgage, we didn't pay this, and that, so we are not entitled to give you a loan. Okay, and we are trying to simulate this. We are going to fill in a social security number, and if that social security number has a restriction, we are just receiving, okay, it has a restriction. If not, we are going to fill in, okay, my name is this is my social security number, this is my email, this is the amount I need to borrow, and this is how many installments I need to pay, with insurance or without insurance, and I will send this simulation to the company will approve or not. Okay, easy. This is one call, this is a get call, right? And this is a CRUD operation. So here in the specific screen, I'm doing a post, but I have a lot of different ones. And if I try to draw to you how it will be within those projects, I will have a restrictions API, right? That I might have a get to the restrictions with the CPF. And on this my API, actually, I have restrictions version 1 and version 2. We can see here that it's duplicated, but the version is different. This is this part of the front end, exists imaginary front end. So this is my backend API. This is my API. And in the simulations part, this is the first part that I will check. I'm calling this restriction, and this part I'm calling simulation. In the simulation part, I have on the API get to the all simulations, get the simulations by the social security number, the post simulation that I need to create, but I need to change it, and I delete, I need to remove that simulation, okay? Regular CRUD operations. So I have those two different APIs with those different approaches. How I can handle this in this structure of client and test projects. So on the client, if I know I have this get consume, trying to see if this social security number has a restriction, right? So the method is like find by this CPF, it's a get, and I might create, of course, a method that will try to find a social security number and will return an exception, okay, saying, okay, this social security number does not exist. And in the simulations part, this is the client part. Let's say I have only two different methods, the regular path and the exception path or edge case. And for the client part, for the simulations API, for the get all the simulations, I can try to find all the simulations. For the get the simulations for a specific social security number, I will create a method to find the simulation by the given social security number, and I will try to find one that is not exists, so we will return not found. And for the post, let's say, we can submit a simulation without any problem, or submit a simulation and it will return an unprocessable entity because I'm missing some attributes there. This part is okay for you guys? What I'm doing here, I'm trying first, let's go back to the first one. I'm trying to just listen the methods I need to create on this client projects to hit the API, the same endpoint, restrictions, but I need to create a method that will find successfully that social security number and one that will return an exception if it's not found. The same for the simulations part. At least we can create more, of course, but at least I will create those methods. I need to create those methods to try to do my tests. Cool? And let's see if I have only more questions. Yeah. So some of test projects are using more than one client. Some of the test project, more than some of, yeah. I will show this because to do a simulation, restriction part, this restriction client or restriction API, it's self-contained. So it only needs to test restriction part. But let's say there are two different APIs, right? After pass the restrictions, that this restriction might consuming any other API from any other company in order to have those information. And the simulation part, I need to have a certainty. It's self-contained as well. I can do this, but I need to do a test using the restriction as well, right? To do an end-to-end test and make sure I can do a query on the restriction part and can do the simulation later. This is the, let's say, the part we are consuming different clients in the test project. And why we need to consume different clients? To do this end-to-end test in our application or for dependent microservices we have. Will it be possible to extend commons also to have not only APIs but also web DBs and etc.? Do you handle the web UI project similarity in similar way? Yes, you can have actually the same thing. Let's go back there. Here, we can have the same, but for web projects, you can, instead of having clients here, you can have your page objects approach, like doing your stuff with page objects. And let's say if I need to do an end-to-end test in the whole application, other tests can consume this project that will have the page objects to consume in this test. You can have the same approach. It will be a little bit more complex, yes, than the API part, but it's totally doable on the UI layer. And again, I'm doing this, Backbase is doing this, and I recommend this if you guys knows you are going to grow in complexity. So with this structure, if another team will be created. It's super easy to adopt any change, to create all the projects and to follow the same process. This is why it's important. But yes, you can create the same structure for the UI layer or for mobile layer as well, for mobile application. Thanks for a question. Thank you for a question. So let's continue. Okay. And now how I can create a test. I showed you the client. Let's see the client again. So if I create a method, I need to create a method in the client side to submit a simulation. And in the test project, in the test side, I have a test, should create a successful simulation, right? And I will consume this method, submit a simulation, to be able to test successfully the simulation itself. For the part that I need to submit a simulation and return unprocessable entity, I will use this method in the test side, and the test might be named should show an error regarding an attribute not sending the request. I'm missing to send the installments attribute, maybe. So I need to test that. So I need to consume this method that I created in the client side to be able to run in the test side, okay? And let's say I will submit a simulation and return a conflict, a new one I added now. Because let's say I already did a simulation and I will do again and again and again a lot of times. So you say, no, you already did one simulation. You are not allowed to create like a lot of different simulations. You can create only one. So I might return a conflict, and I have the method on the client side for that, and I have the test for that on the test side, okay? And how to use to connect this client and test? That was a question from Anatoly. Exactly the same thing. We are going to add it as dependencies. I have a Java example and TypeScript and Node example. In Java, we just need to add a dependency pointing to the version, to the artifact and group ID, and the nodes, the same thing as well, the library, the version, and we are good. We are using exactly this version. This is really good because let's say we need to, let's go back there to the previous picture. This is really good to follow the same approach as we are delivering new features. The API should have all the code, let's say the code itself, the service itself, should have on the main branch or master or main branch, the code that must be deliverable, right? We can deliver anytime that code on the main branch. Our tests should follow the same approach. Let's say we are creating a new feature. Instead of pushing those changes into master and merging to the master or main branch, we are going to create some pull requests. We are going to work in different versions. Maybe in Java that I'm used to programming everything in Java is the snapshot version, or you can create any variation, CRs, PRs, etc. And I'm going to test in that specific different version. And after I tested it and everything's okay, I can create a major version. Instead of having like 1.2.5 snapshots, I tested everything. Now I can promote to 1.2.5. And after that, I will have 1.2.6. I can test everything. And after I tested everything, everything's okay, the service is okay, the tests are running okay, I can promote to that version. So on. Yeah. Let's see, 2 questions here. How do you handle the situations when the consumer of client projects needs some additional behaviors to be implemented? We are implemented that. It happened all the time, let's say. Right now, from my context, it was happening in the past, but right now we have like stable things. So sometimes they say, okay, this team, we would like to do this, and that. is there any method on your client side that does this? Otherwise, can you create for us? And we are doing that. Sometimes we are going to the project and create what we want. Of course, we place a pull request. The team will try to figure out if it's good or bad. We review that and we'll merge or not. But it happens. Sometimes, okay, a team can have a necessity. Okay, I would like to have these methods or these actions on your client. Can you implement or can we implement? But I would say for experience, it's better the team that is responsible for that implement instead of any other team, because you know your context, you know your best practice, your code style, everything. So it's better. And most of the time when this happen, we are creating like tickets, we are planning it, we are delivering it, we are telling the teams, okay, now we have these new features. And one of the things we do, we keep a change log to track all those things as well. Thanks for a question. And does the consumer team create pull requests with needed change of, yeah, is exactly, yeah. Sometimes the consumer, other teams are creating some pull requests to fix or to adding new features. What our process internally at Backbase, when we found some issue, and we know that it's not on our API, it's in other client or in another service, we are talking with the team, double checking if like it's a issue on their side. If it is, we are creating some tickets and making them do the change because they have more context on their side, right? Because let's say I can work in one domain and the team is working on a different domain, and they can have, of course, different process, different everything. So it's better they do this. When it's when those are easy fix, we are doing this. I'm sometimes going there and okay, I will close this project, I will do the fix, send the fix, I will test it, send everything, the pull request. So please, guys, review and merge. But yeah, it's needed and depending on the process you are going to create. Thank you again for your questions. Okay, I'm telling about how we can connect the testing client, right? I'm showing two different examples. We can do with Java plus Maven, in this case, as a dependency upon XML, or the TypeScript, adding on the package.json a dev dependency there, the same thing. And one good thing we can do, we are tracking this as tags at Backbase in the projects. We are trying to keep it up the same versions we have on the tests through the microservice one and through the test project as well. Let's say my simulation API has a version 1. The last one, 1.1.42. Maybe my client or my test, it's not on the sync with the same version, but we need to associate it, right? Because let's say I delivered this version to a customer, and after 2 months, that customer is using that specific feature, that specific version, and is opening some tickets telling, okay, guys, that's the issue here, we need to fix. So how you can revert it back, all the changes you did in 2 months, to be able to test without any problem that specific past version. So it's good to try to, it's Portuguese, yeah, sorry for this. But what is a good approach? To keep this association. And one of the, not best ways, but proposed ways, is trying to tag your code after you do the merge into the branch. You go there and you create a tag telling, okay, this is the API version 1.1.42, okay? And a small recap before I can jump into the code. Normally, we create like robust models to test microservices in isolation and to test microservice with the different dependencies. Like I said before, like the example, I have my microservices doing everything, but my microservice should be audited. Everything that I do in microservice should go to the audit part and log everything that I'm doing. This is really common on the bake application, bake system. So it's a dependency, and it needs to, these are calling end-to-end. It's a kind of integration, but it's end-to-end because it needs to, do my things and check in the other side as well. We also create models to create different projects. So we have, in this example, client, test, commons, and parent. And again, the client is the entire API calls for the microservice, and that's it. No test that, no assertions. The test itself, all the tests that we are going to use in the microservices. The commons project are the client encodes within the libraries or without the libraries, and the parent as well, the same test and code within the libraries or without the libraries. You guys, if you want, you can merge this commons and parent in only one project and sharing between the client and test, or you can have it splitted. Currently, we have it splitted, but I would say I would merge it right now because it's the same thing. We are using the parent only for libraries and nothing else. Okay, this is not the end. This is the only thank you. I will show the whole code, the whole structure that I created. Okay, but this is the time I will show this in the end as well. If you scan this, you can have access to the presentation, blah, 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 my presentations. You can find me on the social networks. Don't follow me on Instagram because I don't have nice pictures and I'm ugly, so there's nothing interested there. And let's also, you guys have all the projects that I will show. So I will jump into the projects right now. If you guys would like to ask some questions regarding the presentation, please do, because I will explain how I implemented those examples in an easy way, of course, not complex, but how we can implement all the things that I have told you guys in a project. Okay. So let's jump to my IDE and let's see if we have some questions. And I just looking here because I have my computer here and you guys are here, right? So did the process affect the velocity of deployment of APIs? Not at all. Actually, let's rephrase myself. It's not affecting, but we are not delivering really fast APIs. Let's say in this process, a backender engineer is creating everything within the unit integration tests. And if there's something we need to do on this API that is not covered by units and integration, we are doing on the test side. So let's say we have a little bit of delay to deliver that feature because we need to double check not only the backend perspective, on a quality engineer perspective, but it's bringing us more control, and we can add more scenarios that might not be possible to do in integration test. Let's say the same case with the auditable scenarios. The service itself can only create mocks for the auditable scenarios, but in the real world, we need to make sure I can see all the audit logs there. So I cannot simulate on the integration layer. I should simulate in the test projects, connecting with their clients and doing that kind of tests. It's not affecting that velocity like that much, but it's increasing the confidence in the quality of our application. Yeah, we need to measure that. We know that our cultural backbase, we prioritize most of the time, almost 100%, 100% not possible, but almost 100%, we prioritize quality. So if you are saying that it's not good, there's only a small issue, we are not delivering that because we have an issue on that. Cool, thanks for your question. And don't you think unit integration and consumer-driven contract tests are not enough to ensure that microservice works properly and cooperate with other microservices? It is. I'm really fun of creating more integration tests than these different tests I'm showing to you in the different test project. But in a complex environment, when you have integration, you can create the same thing on integration layer, splitting up in integration tests and create a different package or folder or anything, create this end-to-end or dependent services as well. You can make sure, but in this integration layer, you need to make sure not only your microservice is working, but your microservice is working within the other microservices, at least the basic scenarios. Because of that, we created those different kind of approach, but you can use this in the same integration layer. What we are doing right now at Backbase, that I can share with you guys, we were creating all those kinds of tests, even the ones that could be on the integration layer in this test project. Now we are doing the opposite. Now we are seeing, okay, which are the tests that are not in connecting with the other APIs, or most of the tests. We are pushing, we are moving that test to the integration layer. And we are creating on this, let's go back there. In this test project, this test part, we are only adding the test that depends on the other microservices. So it's faster, it will be faster. You can remove any dependence from the service. You can see any issue you just did in the code. And if everything's okay, you just want to make sure that you still are communicating correctly with other dependencies. Excellent question, Mac. And I truly believe that this test part should be only end-to-end tests. Of course, you guys can create a functional test here, but I would say this test part should be end-to-end, and all functional tests for the API should be placed on the integration layer on the API, on the backend side. We can contribute, we can learn this, or the backender can do this. It's another talk, but currently some quality engineers at Backbase are doing this. Sometimes I'm doing this. I'm seeing a user story, and okay, we have the scenarios, and we can see, okay, most of these guys can be implemented on the API layer, on the integration layer. So the backenders are doing, if I can see, okay, we can create 1 or 2 or 3 more tests, I'm pulling the code, I'm doing that integration test, and I'm pushing, because I have knowledge on that. If there's any quality that doesn't have knowledge on that, it's okay. So we are asking the backenders to, okay, we have more 3 scenarios, can you implement that integration layer? So we are decreasing the time we are spending running tests. Cool. What I have here, it's really small here, but let me see if I can increase. No. I have an structure that is a presentation mode that I never know how is the view appearance. No, full screen presentation mode. That's it. Yeah, but project view. Yeah, now it's better. So what I have here for that API, I have the same thing. I have a client and a test project for restrictions and for simulation, and I have the commons and parent project. Let's start with the test parent. What I have on test parent, no code, and on the Poem XML, I have the libraries I'm using. So I'm setting the Java version, basic stuff here. And now, okay, I'm using JUnit like version 5, AssertJ version this, Rest Assured this version, Java Faker this version. So I'm fixing the versions of the APIs, of the library, sorry. Only this. And of course, the dependencies here, and that's it. Okay? So why I'm doing this? Because on the projects, let's say on the simulations test, what I'm doing here, sorry, on the client project, no, sorry, here, I have a parent, which is the test parent, which is that version. So I make sure all the testing libraries are coming from this one for the simulations part. And in the restrictions test as well, I have the same thing. The parent using the same version, using the same libraries. Why is this? To make consistency. Imagine if I, as I said before, imagine if I update any version, and it's adding a breaking change can like make me the process more troubled. Okay, so this is the parent. It's really simple. I could merge into the test commons. I could, but let's see the test commons. The bone XML part. Look, this is intentionally, but I have rest assured here, right? Why not importing? Why not merging the test part? Because these JSON annotations in this owner version is not necessary for the test, it's necessary for the client. So because of that, I created this division, but it's okay if you do the same, if you merge those two different ones. So I have the libraries that I will consume here. And what about the code part? I have the REST client here that will do what? That will create this REST client, getting the path and get the normal like rest assured config. This config is really simple. You can of course extend to any other configurations and all different things, but like I'm trying to make sure all the project has the same rest assured configuration, which will be the big decimal as the full returning type for numbers, and we will enable any logging for request and response if the test fails. And of course, you can extend adding filters, adding any other thing. Okay, in this case of there's this REST client. And what I have a configuration manager here. I'm using a tool called a library called owner. So I need to read this API properties in order to have the base URI, base path, and port that I'm using in the REST client, because those ones are coming from a property file that I will show to you how we can get that. Okay. If I need access to databases and do some queries, I would create a new package here, database, and I would like MySQL connection, and I would place any code regarding the connection, or like it's not on that class, of course, that public string return some ID. Public magic here inside. Okay, I would create a class to only do all the things I need with the database or any other class. Okay. Let's see if I have a question. Yeah. Do you release changes to your APIs often, let's say once a week, and deploy to the production, or rather they are released rarely, like few times a year? No, we have a calendar version, as we are delivering for banks. We are not. We follow a continuous delivery approach, not a continuous deployment. Continuous deployment, okay, because our kind of business doesn't allow us to deploy every time. What's the difference? As we are providing services for banks, they need to adopt, and before they adopt, they will see the change we did, the new features we have, and they will might adopt or not. So we are delivering every month a bunch of different features. And this is why we are using the continuous delivery process. Everything that is on master is ready to deliver, but it's not being delivered itself because we don't need to use this in that moment. But we do release really often, like every week we have different features in different teams happening all the time. If let's say if I work for any e-commerce part, I could use the continuous deployment process. So as soon as I did all the tests, all the process, it's ready to deploy, it's deployed. It can be deployed automatically. So I have this certainty that, okay, I did all the tests, it's there, okay? But we do this, we release very often, and every week, sometimes in a week, we have 2 or 3 different features being delivered and tested. And not at all, instead of having a separate parent project, you can create POM.xml and at root level API test architecture as child project and inherit them from parent POM. Perfect, Anatoly. I'm just not using this because this I'm showing you a multi-model project, but normally at Backbase, and I like this way as well, personally, not having a multi-model project, have separated projects to be able to manage properly the versions. But it's kind of the way we are adopting. So it's okay. Your suggestion is completely doable. We could have an POM.xml for this API project and have all those libraries from parent project here in the main project API test architecture. Thank you. So continue. I showed you the test and the parent part. Now there's one more. Yeah, sorry. There's 2 more. Yeah. How do you handle a situation if, for example, in a client project, you have a dependency of version X, and in a project with test, you have the same dependency of the version Y. Let's see, client project, you have a dependency of version X. In a project with test, you have the same dependency of version I. In a client project, I have a version 1, let's say. In a project with test, I have dependency with version Y. It sometimes happens. It shouldn't happen. But what you can do, you can deliver new features and adopt those features later on the client. It's not that doable. But let's say you, I will show to you in the example. It will be better. Okay. Does this test parent contain any code, or this is a rule for just dependencies? In this case, it's only dependencies, but like if you want, you can merge into the test commons and have the libraries on the test commons as a code, or this test parent, this my test parent, has only the dependencies. It really depends. Previously, I was creating this way, but nowadays, I truly believe that those 2 can be merged. My experience. Let's start with the restrictions part because it's the easier one to see how we can interact with the client and with the test part. So here, in my dependencies part, if you see, I have a dependency of the test commons, right? Which is the basic REST client, the basic REST part. And I have some like configurations here, and that's it. But in the code, what I have here, it's a normal approach as well. We normally have a client code, okay? What I'm doing this client code. This is a simple example. In professional way, we can apply a lot of different things, create this a better approach, but this is only example you guys can understand. You can apply in your context, of course, but you can like make it better, okay? I have this client restrictions API where I'm extending the client, REST client. Where this REST client is coming from the client project. Remember the base client thing that is pointing to the base URI, base path, port, and version. So it's making like this association on rest assured, and I don't need to have this duplication, so it's on the client side. I have here hard-coded. It's not a good practice, but it's just a way to explain to you guys the version that the API will consume and the endpoint, the CPF as a parameter. And what I have here, I'm saying, okay, super, send all those informations to the REST client. So we'll be able to tell rest assured to use all these different data. And what I have here, now I have a method like return social security number with a restriction. So I'm expecting that it has a restriction, right? So I'm sending the social security number as a parameter, and I'm doing the basic Bash assured code, but I'm returning here something from Bash assured, validatable response. The response will be returned, and from that response, I will use it into the test and make the assertions. I'm not doing any assertion here, only the stats code because it's necessary. So what I'm doing here, I'm hitting that restrictions API, querying a CPF, social security number, adding the get method here, and I expect that the stats code is okay, and I will return the response, the whole thing, to this generic brush assured object. And if I try to search a social security number without any restrictions, that I would return not found, because okay, I'm not finding this social security number in my table, which has some restrictions. It's only a not found. If it's not found, I don't need to return anything, so it's a void. So it's okay. I could tell true or false or something differently, but I'm telling, okay, just return void. I expecting that there's nothing here. Is that clear, guys? So if I have any other, like, I could, I don't know, any other method, but I could create public, I create void, return social security. This is not the case. I will implement on the other one. So I have those two methods, two actions. It's a self-contained actions, of course. And what I'm doing with this, I'll close this one. In the restrictions test, first thing, I have the dependence of the client, right? Version 1. And I have the parent here. And inside the code, inside of the actual test, I'm first instantiating that restriction client that is from my client project. And now what I'm doing, okay, restrictions client, return social security number with restriction. This social security number has a restriction, so it's returning the response, and the response should have an attribute message saying this social security number has a restriction. Okay. The same thing, social security number without restriction. I'm querying this, and this doesn't have any restriction. I could send the same thing, like without sending the correct one or empty one and trying to do a different test. So what is the matter here? Let me void A. The main thing here is if I have a restriction client, I can access all the methods I created on that restriction client. So I can use and can hit that endpoints. Cool. And you can see I'm not using any actual hard Bash assured code here, doing the given by the import, the precondition, the action, and the expectation. Because the expectation is being transferred by this validatable response, and through the response, I can do this extract and inspect those attributes there, or I can even create that response as an object and verify that object as well if I want. Cool. Any questions on this basic example, guys? Let me see. Not for now. Let me jump to the simulations part because it has more tests. Simulation client. So here you can see instead of only client, I have exception, and I have the models. This is good because let me open the client first. And this simulation is the CRUD operations, right? So I can get, create, update, and delete. At least I have those 5 different methods. So I have the whole base configuration. And now what I have here, let me go through one by one. I have this method that gets all the simulations and returns all the simulations so I can do something. So it's like sending the simulations, it expects that is successfully, so it's okay. And extracting, now what I'm doing, instead of having public validatable response, let's say get all simulations, I'm returning to an object called simulations as an array or list. Why? Because this I can easily manage to do the same thing, but it's better to transform those things in objects. And Rest Assured has internal feature that can serialize or deserialize any object matching the response, the request of the response in that object. So let's open that object. This simulation one, I have here ID, name, CPF, email, amount, installments, insurance, everything that I have on my API. And I'm using all the getters and setters. I could use Lombok here, of course, but I have all the getters and setters and the public constructor to do this match. So when I have the object being returned from my API, Rest Assured magically will try to see the response body. It try to match. It has an ID, yes, pass the value to this ID. Has a name, yes, pass the value to it. Has a CPF, pass the value to it, and so on. And I have also a create new simulation. And this create new simulation, I'm following at least the base KPI approach. I need to pass the whole simulation object, and it will return a header, because when we create something, we need to pass through a header the complete path to test if I can query that simulation or query that object or that request. And I have the get simulation by social security number, passing the social security number, and should return the simulation itself. Getting by a name, the same thing. I'm passing the name, returning a list of simulations that match partially that name. I also have the exception paths methods for that. I'm getting a simulation by name and expect not found, because I can query Elias, and okay, this Elias is not on the database. So it's a not found exception, right? It's not found. I need to have that separate method. So I'm doing the same, but extracting the not found exception. I can do all those things, update. I can try to update and return a conflict because I'm adding this updating with a whole data with the same ID, let's say. I can update and do a not found because I try to update sending a social security number that doesn't exist. I can do the same, sending a unprocessable entity that not filling a specific part of the attributes. And I have the delete. I have the delete when the social security number doesn't exist. And I can create all those different methods. Okay, guys? So what I'm doing this client right now, it's getting bigger, but I have all the methods that I can consume in the test project. And also, the exception part, I'm just like creating the basic exception, like conflict exception, not found exception, just to make sure I have specific parts. And I have the simulation exception, and I know that when a simulation exception occurs in my backend, I know that it has a message. And I can create this object to get the proper message and make Rest Assured do the serialization, the serialization part for me. The same thing for unprocessable entity exception. And I have the model that I already told you that is the basic attributes, and I have just a builder here to use later on in my test. Okay, what about the test part? The test part now has new things. So let's focus on the test itself, and I will show you the other classes. So how I name this? Let's say I have this test that should return a simulation by the social security number. So it should be valid, right? What I'm doing here, I'm creating a simulation. Right? Actually, I'm getting one existing simulation. I querying the simulation using the client, and I could use like simulations client dot. I can have access to all that methods in the client project that I was using. Okay, but what I'm doing, in the simulations client, I'm getting by social security number. So this existing simulation dot get CPF, and I'm placing this into this object, and I'm doing an assertion to see, okay, this is the correct one. It's the correct one. But now let's see. I have a factory here. There is a factory method that getting one existing simulation, which is implementation that I did in a class. It's a factory class that is getting all the simulations from the API, and I'm returning a random one just to make sure I can query an existing one without the necessity of create one. Okay, otherwise I should create first and after that try to find it. But this approach I'm doing, I'm getting any one from the API, returning it, and see if it exists or not. It should exist, of course. And here I have should create a simulation. What I'm doing here, I'm creating a new simulation, use that builder. So I'm passing all the data, the name, social security number, email, amount, so on. And I'm creating the simulation using the simulation client. This will return a header. You can see here on this part on the right side. And through the header, I'm getting the value location and see if it contains the CPF there. Same thing like let's focus on this one. Should filter by name, no existing simulation. So what I'm sending, I'm using the simulations client and I'm calling the get simulation by name and expect not found, and I'm setting the name no existent. It will return a not found exception, and through this not found exception, I'm getting the message and I'm asserting that the message is name not found. Cool. So I can create now a lot of possibilities, and you can see it's easy. I'm decreasing a lot the rest assured code on the test side because I'm implementing all those code in the client. Let's say I have another team that wants to consume all the simulations. They need to create a simulation or do something for their purpose. Instead of consuming our test, they can consume our client, and they can use those methods we have, and they can do their tests without any like extra capacity from our side to do this for them. Okay, as the same as I have here for all the different like expecting conflict exception, existing simulation for everything. So I have plenty of tests. I even have like a parameterized scenario where I'm sending different requests without some attributes and try to see, okay, this attribute that I'm removing, like name, it's now being replied. Okay, the name is not found there. Okay, it's not there. So I'm doing this. So it's our test class. We can do as many tests as possible as we want. So what I have like supportive methods. I have here a social security number generator because it has a like an IBAN. It has a specific pattern, so we can use this specific pattern. And I have the data factory here, creating all the kinds of different data, like create a valid simulation, not existent CPF, simulation less than minimum amount, exceeding the amount, and etc. All the necessary data I need, I'm creating in this class to be able to play better with my tests. And I have a data provider using JUnit 5 just to test the different error types. So I know if I send a simulation with less than a minimum amount, so this should be the error message, this should be the key. This should be the key and the error message and so on. Okay. And what else here? Only one thing that I didn't explain to you. How I can, where is the endpoint? So I can point to different endpoints, right? Like an internal development one, a production one, or from a different IP address. So every test project has a resource folder, and this resource folder has a property file with the correct paths to the URI, base path, and port. Why is that? Because I can have different environments or different URLs for that pointing. I can configure it easily here. And as it is a property file, I can easily change it to a command line, in a pipeline, everywhere I can replace those values. And I have it for the simulations test and for the restriction test as well. So it's like kind of pattern. All the test projects should have this API.properties with at least those 3 properties and setting any value I would like to. But when I'm using it, this is the part, I need to connect branch assured with the complete path, at least base URI, base path and port to all the requests, and it's placed on the test commons in your client side. Okay, so this client side, what this client side is doing, it's expect the base URI, port, path, and actually the version. But it's not here, right? Where are those values from the API side? It's coming from the client part. This is a little bit not that complex, but you can see that I get the base URI from the configuration file, get the base path from the configuration file, get the port from the configuration file, but the versions and the endpoint get here from the code. And I could do the same. I could implement here, not in the test. I could add the version here, version v1, and endpoint, path endpoint object. We can call anything. I will call it controller, let's say. Simulations, and we could use this from the file here as well. Like I could replace this by, it doesn't exist right now, but it could be version. Okay, easily manageable. Why we do this sometimes? Because it's better to have anything that can change easily on property files. Because of that, we are creating this approach. Cool. Now it's pretty much the end of my presentation. So I will take a look on some questions. And let me point out, if you guys want to, let's this part, so you guys can see the presentation. You can have the presentation right now. But let's see, usually client and test project are merged in one project, and they are divided into main and test folder. What's the benefit of putting them in separate project? It's because clients are consumed. Yes, it's exactly this. And sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Really sorry. But it's exactly this. If you have a service, a microservice that will be consumed by another one or others ones, it's better to create this client project. If you have a microservice that it's only this microservice, let's say audit everyone consumes, but audit doesn't consume any other one, right? So we can have the client and project in the same project instead of splitting it. Cool, great question. Why you don't have a separate layer for assertions having everything so modularized? Actually, it could be a good idea, especially when you start to do more human readable reporting. Yes, we do have it at Backbase. Actually, we have an abstraction layer called assertors, where we can send, okay, assert this object, and it will do in-depth assertions or any kind of assertions, so we can have it instead of like, let's return there to the simulation part just to see. Yeah, here, right? No, not here. The simulations test simulations. Instead of have this kind of assertions, right? We can have like different methods or abstraction layer to do this for us without using this, or actually the most this, to not using this, right? So we can create abstraction on top of that, and only, okay, assert, like, let's say it doesn't exist, but assert that relation is correct, and passing the simulation here, right? Instead of this code, let's say. It's totally valid as well. We do this for some objects, but personally, it's my personal opinion. I'm really fan to see all the assertions in the test. But if you are creating a method that asserts everything, it's okay as well, because we know that this method will have these assertions inside. Great question. And let's say as project is growing and you can see something you can do differently, or to increase the readability, or to decrease the amount of code you are creating, or code duplication, it's better. We should adopt the approach. More questions? No. So guys, I will wait a little bit if you have any more questions. If not, I will thank you for your time to be here with me, to stay that long seeing my presentation. And if you guys want, add me on the social networks. If you guys would like to join Backbase, ask me in private. I'm really honest, so I would tell all the things good we do, all the problems we have, and how we are trying to solve that problems, because it's why we are working to solve some problems and make the whole process and culture better.
Thank you very much, Elias, for a very technical presentation and explanation. How are you working in your project? So it was very helpful. Probably most of our visitors also use your lesson. And thank you one more time. Kuba?
Thank you.
Elias, thank you so much for really entertaining. Even though I'm not as that technical, I this hour and a half listen to it and diving into how do we do things. So guys, pro tip, if you would be interested in joining Backbase, especially R&D teams that we are building in Poland, Elias is one of our technical recruiters, so you may have a chance to meet him during the recruitment process, which is super fun. So I do recommend this. And yeah, if you have any other questions than technical questions, you can go ahead and just ask me anything, basically. And last but not least, this is our second time being on QArantanna. So Grzegorz, Marta, thank you so much for the second invitation. And hopefully you will invite us one more time.
Thank you for being our guest, and yeah, probably we will meet in future.
Sure.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
Bye.